everyone! In this video, I'm going to be showing you how to make the absolute best baked mac and cheese. I love making this for all my family gatherings as it's so comforting and creamy. I've included all my tips and tricks to make this mac and cheese taste just like home with a twist, so I hope you enjoy! Now, this may be a shock to everyone, but my first step actually is to make my whipped garlic butter. The reason why I make my whipped garlic butter first is I like to have a really nice breadcrumbs on top of my mac and cheese, and I like to put a garlic butter just to enhance so much more flavor into the recipe as a whole, because some of the butter actually seeps in while the mac and cheese is baking. So the first thing that I do is add 2 sticks of butter to a large bowl, and I like to add in a whole head of garlic. I really like garlic, so this is enough for me, but if you don't like garlic, just use a couple cloves. Into my garlic butter mixture, I add 1 tablespoon of rosemary, 1 tablespoon of thyme, 1 tablespoon of oregano, about 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika. It has to be smoked, it just adds a little bit more flavor. A whole lot of black pepper and just a pinch of salt. Using my hand mixer, I whisked all of this stuff together until nice and combined. And then I just place this back into my fridge for a while. After this, I then boiled my water. And yes, you're gonna wanna add a whole bunch of salt to your water. This just ensures that you have a nice flavorful pasta water to add to your cheese sauce later. To my pot of boiling water, I actually added medium shells. You can use regular macaroni. For this recipe, I chose to use medium shells because I think they hold the sauce better than macaroni does. After adding my pasta to boiling water, I then shredded my cheese. Now, I'm going to let you know this now. This recipe is extremely cheesy. I actually used 4 blocks in total. Initially, I just started out with shredding some sharp white cheddar cheese and some medium cheddar cheese to put in my cheese sauce. It would be a smart idea if you also shredded your other cheeses at this step. I just did not anticipate how much cheese I would actually be using. You can honestly use a variety of different cheeses for this recipe. I don't really have a preference. Just make sure that you have a good mix of both sharp and more medium cheeses so it's not overpowering or underwhelming in any direction. Then it was honestly my favorite part of the recipe. It was time for me to make my cheese sauce. So the first thing that I did is I melted a whole stick of butter. I'm making a little bit of a roux, so you want to add like equal parts butter to flour. So for 1 stick of butter, I added about a 1/2 cup of flour. I actually ended up using about a 1/4 cup more just because I wanted my roux to be a little bit thicker, so I made more of a little paste. But once I got to the consistency I wanted, I started adding my milk. But before adding my milk, I actually added about 1 tablespoon of garlic powder and about 1 teaspoon of smoked paprika, just so it had a little bit more flavor. Using about a 1/4 cup to 1/2 cup measurements, I added about 2 cups of milk in total, creating a nice base before I added the rest of my cheeses to the sauce. I actually forgot to mention that in this step, I actually added about 1 cup of my pasta water to this to make the sauce a little bit thinner, and you also get the nice flavor from the pasta as well. Then I added all my cheeses, like really together until they were nice and melted and combined with my sauce before adding in the pasta. After about adding a pound of cooked pasta, I added 1 teaspoon of garlic powder, about a 1/2 teaspoon of paprika, and about 1 teaspoon of oregano, and I also added in a couple more pinches of salt. A couple more pinches of black pepper. I then added 2 beaten eggs. This actually helps the macaroni and cheese keep its structure so it can sit really nicely on your plate and it won't be going everywhere. You don't have to add an egg, I just prefer it, especially if you're making it for like Thanksgiving or Christmas or any other holidays where you want it as a side and not really a main dish. Because I forgot to do this beforehand, I then shredded about another 2 blocks of cheese so I can put some like in the middle layer of my mac and cheese and at the top. Into the garlic butter that I made earlier, I actually added in some Ritz crackers to make my breadcrumbs. I like Ritz crackers best, but you can use really any crackers that you like. Just make sure to crumble them up really nicely and finely, and then mix them in with your butter. I used the half packages, but if you aren't using the half packages, I would recommend using about like 25 to 30 Ritz crackers in total combined with your butter. This creates a really nice and buttery crust that really seeps into the rest of the mac and cheese. This is my personal favorite step that I don't see a lot of people do, but honestly, some people are against putting breadcrumbs on your mac and cheese, but honestly, this one just enhances the flavor so much, and it's so good. I really would not recommend skipping this step. Then it's finally time to assemble the mac and cheese. So the first thing that I did is I sprayed a 9 by 13 pan before adding in my first layer of mac and cheese. After adding my first layer of mac and cheese, I then sprinkle about half of my other cheese mixture in between before finishing off with the second half of the mac and cheese mix. After, I finish the mac and cheese off with the rest of the other cheese before adding in my breadcrumbs. Make sure your breadcrumbs are spread all throughout because you want to make sure that you don't miss a spot. After preparing my mac and cheese, I then covered it with aluminum foil and put it in my refrigerator because I wasn't cooking it this day. But when you are ready to cook, you're just going to preheat your oven to 350 degrees and bake it for about 45 minutes covered under the aluminum foil. And then for the last 10 to 15 minutes, you're going to uncover it and let the cheese melt. Because I wasn't eating this right away, I covered it up with the aluminum foil, but as you can see, even like 30 minutes later, it was still warm and so gooey and delicious. When you're ready to serve, just cut it into about 12 to 18 pieces and simply enjoy this recipe with your family and friends. It's so delicious and I swear, it is a fan favorite. I hope you enjoyed this video and have a wonderful day no matter your situation or location. Goodbye!